Let me tell you about what was going on in the book of Acts. Acts was the early church, so it's the movements and the beginnings of this early church. It's that groundswell. Jesus has died. He was murdered, crucified on the cross. We know that was on a Friday. On a Sunday, he was resurrected, and then he spent 40 days here on earth. I mean, you can imagine 40 days, you run into a guy, you saw him die, and now you run into him. You can imagine the groundswell that was happening of people going, oh my gosh, I saw him die. I heard him say he was going to rise again, and I saw him and I heard him. So there was this groundswell. Well, these disciples, the 11 that were left, they began to be emboldened, as you would. All of a sudden, this isn't something I hide from. It's something I stand for. And they begin to really puff their chest out and do their thing. And then at the end of 40 days, Jesus said, oh, by the way, I'm going back to my Father, and I'm leaving it with you. And he leaves it with them. And then we have this beginning of the early church. Simon Peter stands up and he speaks, and we know that 3,000 were saved and baptized that day, and thus began what we know in our beginnings as the early church. As Acts is being written by Luke, and he's penning down these words, he says this in Acts 2:42. All the believers, what's the next word? Okay, help me out again. All the believers, what? Devoted. Meaning, when you devote yourself, you give your life to something, right? All the believers devoted themselves. They turned their mind's attention, they turned their heart's affection towards the learning of God's word together, because they knew it was survival now. See, it wasn't like you were voting for the 2020 Church of the Year, right? You were the underground church. You were the enemy. The Jews hated them. They hated this early group of Christ followers, and they were learning all that they could. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, because they were the ones that had walked with Jesus. They had seen what Jesus did. They knew the miracles. They were writing these things down. And to the fellowship, to the sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. All the believers, I mean, they were all in. But interestingly, we live in a connected society, but we're very disconnected people. Psychology Today did a survey in 2019. 47% of people said that they experience terms and seasons of loneliness. How does that happen? I mean, we can be connected at a touch. See, God set up a system within the church for us to never have to experience all the things we just talked about. Pen, pencil, something to write with this morning. I want you to write down a couple thoughts. Number one, you and I, we all need a place to belong. We all need a place to belong. We all need somewhere. I want you to write this little phrase down. We all need somewhere. We are somebody, right? We all need somewhere. We are somebody. We all need a place to belong. I also need a place where I can grow. I also need a place where I can go. We teach one another. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. I need a place, I need an environment I can go grow. All right, now, I don't want to ever discount the purpose of Sunday mornings. Sunday mornings are awesome, right? But Sunday mornings will not grow you spiritually. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. I'll help you, but it's not going to grow you. It's going to add to your growth, but where does growth happen? Growth happens when I get better because of the people around me. I'll tell you this, some of the most impactful things in my life spiritually, I haven't learned from a book. I've learned from the lives of men and women in groups that I lead. When they share something, I go, man, that's exactly what I needed. I grow from their experience. But point number 3, I need a place to be cared for. Care for one another. And to fellowship, to the sharing of meals. Here's what I'll tell you. Sunday mornings, you may get to know somebody on your row, but you will not get to know anybody. Just not. How do you get to know people? Groups. I want you to write down a little phrase, and we've used it here 1,000 times. Circles, not rows. Circles, not rows. We grow in circles. We don't grow in rows. And I lead groups from an executives Bible study that many of our guys are in here to a couples group you'll hear about here in a second, to some spiritual leadership groups that I meet with, and police chiefs group. Chief Dennard's in over here. I host all these groups. Why? Because we all need circles where we know each other. And I'm telling you, the conversations that happen in those rooms won't happen on a Sunday morning. There's a depth that you go to. And the final thing, point number 4, I need a place to be encouraged. I need a place that keeps me going. Let's just face it, ladies and gentlemen, life ain't easy. There's stuff that comes your way that is not easy. And we need some people that are in our corner that go, you can do this. You can make it. You can keep walking. Because here's the reality. I want everybody to look at me. God has an amazing plan for all your lives. That is reality. Here's also reality. There's an enemy that would love to keep you from that plan. There's times, ladies and gentlemen, as a dad and as a mom, you need somebody to hold your arms up. We were talking last night about phone calls we've gotten from our children. Not really our children, Mary Michael. All right, while we're in small group with an emergency, right? I'm in an accident. Something's gone wrong. And man, that group's right there to pray with us. There was a season when I lost my mom and dad. They helped my arms up. I'm telling you, life is not simple. Life is not easy. Your arms will weary. We don't want that to happen to you. We want those people to come alongside you and get your arms up so you can fight the battle God's called you to fight.